play a game?
Why, yes, I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Getting geeky in Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for joining. It's a really cool, it's always a cool episode. But this week is super cool because, as we all know, Halloween is almost upon us. And I've got a guest that has a really cool project that is right in that sweet spot of Halloween. And he's also got some interesting background in film and TV. And so he's going to be a wonderful guest. Looking forward to it. And it's Adam Lawson. So Adam, welcome to Shane Plays Geek Talk.
Shane, thank you for having me on, dude. This is very cool to enter your world, to Geek Talk. Yeah,
I'm glad to have you. Yeah, we're just it's Geek Talk. If it's geeky, it goes. It's just kind of what's popular or not popular. It's just what's geeky, and a lot of times the geeky stuff I covered is not what's mainstream geek. So one of the things that I love to hear from listeners is I would never have known about X if you hadn't have talked about it on your show, but now I know and I'm getting more into it. So, it's because geek has become cool in a way over the past several years. But sometimes I delve off into stuff that's truly geeky and nerdy. And not.
I like that you say that. I like to say it because I feel like that's true. I worked in film and television, and so I know both sides. But I'm still the guy who what I love is at the comic shop or at the comic convention is to find the thing that you couldn't get on Amazon that you couldn't get
or
anywhere else.
Yeah.
And it's like it's fun to have like the indie creator, that guy who it's making it or girl who's making it out of straight passion, right? Instead of Jim Lee's your editor, you work for DC, who is actually owned by AT&T. So it's not that there's something wrong with that because I love Jim Lee.
No, I love it all. I mean, I love comic books. I love DC. I love Marvel. I love indie comic books.
Yeah, same here.
So I love it all. But I know what you mean. It's like you go to a con and you run across something that you've only heard about, like in hushed whispers, and you're like, I didn't even know this really existed, and now here it is.
That's the best feeling when you're like, oh, I remember. Headlopper, I don't know if you know this graphic novel, but I remember meeting Andrew McLean at Comic-Con and Artist Alley, which is like the for me, that's the most important part because that's where it's truly, comics, right? And it's the artist face to face. And reading Headlopper, seeing Headlopper for the first time, and then it's want to become one of my favorite graphic novels. I've got all 3 volumes and I just love it. And there's something special about that, right? I found another book that way called Bitter Root by Sanford Green that was just like, these cool pieces. And not that there's anything wrong with the movie business being in there. It just has more resources.
No, it's just entertainment on different, I love it all. Yeah. I mean, I can watch Avengers Endgame and love it just as much as finding the bootleg of the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie. So yes. I love it. I love it all, man.
Yeah,
so it's
same,
all cool.
Same here.
Yeah, so anyway, all right. So, Adam, what we're going to be mainly talking about today, but I want to explore a little bit more with you. But your main thing is, and we will talk about this in depth later in the show, you have a project on Indiegogo right now called The Kill Journal, and it's a horror graphic novel about revenants and the survivors who hunt them. And it's... in broad strokes, my impression is it's the people who have survived the slasher movie bad guys and have come together, right?
That's right.
And kind of, so revenants, and like I said, we can get more into this later. Revenants are the people running around with masks and a machete, or is that a fair comparison?
Yeah, well, a revenant at its core definition is a vengeful spirit back from the dead, right?
Okay.
And so I would say revenants includes slashers, like a Jason Voorhees type, but it also is broader, right? Like it's in the East, they call them jiangshi, or this idea of these vengeful spirits. And so what's cool about them is because they're a vengeful spirit back from the dead inhabiting this flesh, they can't be killed by just a bullet to the head or running them over with a truck, right? You have to actually solve the spiritual problem, and that's why they keep coming back. So what makes it interesting is these survivors who are hunting them, one is hunting something that can easily kill them, and they'll never be stronger than it in a direct sense, right? They have to figure out how that revenant was made, right? If it was Jason Voorhees, for example, where they drowned at Camp Crystal Lake as a kid and they were tortured there, and you got to get this revenant back to that lake and that summer camp and recreate something, or is it something else? And so it makes it a really interesting tale because the revenants themselves they're sometimes sympathetic, even though they're these terrifying killers, right? Because at some point they were tortured publicly or by people were mistreated and they were pushed over the line.
That's a very classic. I don't even want to say trope because it goes deeper than that. It's a very classic part of the mythology of a lot of slasher and horror movie monsters. Right. Is something tragic happened to them, and then through a series of events they're vengeful. And it's interesting because when you talk about revenants, like Freddy Krueger in the movies is literally a revenant. He's literally a revenant. He literally fits the definition of a revenant. He's come back for vengeance. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And he's come back. But what's cool about him is because they're back from the dead, they usually bring with them a supernatural gift in some way. Now with Freddy Krueger, it's that he invades your dreams, right? And then I have a revenant in the Kill Journal called Mr. Crispy, who was this war vet who became homeless and ultimately was ridiculed. And for fun, this group of guys shoved firecrackers and fireworks in his pockets, and they blew up and lit him on fire, and he died in the burn unit at the hospital. Right, and so he's now come back for revenge. And it doesn't just end when he gets the people who got him. He keeps continuing until his spiritual problem gets solved, right? So, and as a result of that, he can light people on fire by touching them, right? And he looks kind of mummified as he's got the gauze and the burn unit and this beat up jacket. And what makes him cool is that he has this supernatural gift, but it's limited, right? It's not like he's the Human Torch and can just blast things. But it makes him more interesting than just a serial killer down the road.
Cool. So, and we'll talk more about it again, folks. This is the Kill Journal. It is a graphic novel that Adam has on Indiegogo right now. We will be talking more about the specifics of what it is, how you can get it. Well, obviously you can get it on Indiegogo, but maybe, what you can get on Indiegogo. But I want to talk a little bit just about, as long as we're on the subject, sort of horror movies in general a little bit since it's Halloween. Do you have any a go-to horror movie that you like to recommend to people?
I mean, at the core was the original John Carpenter's Halloween, right? I think that started for me. Yeah. And then I think Scream, the original Scream, really is something that always stood out to me. I loved it. It's what made a slasher movie so fun, right?
It was very fun. This is how I define, and it took me until I think the third movie to get it. Scream was horror movies blended with the Friends sitcom.
I think it's a great way to look at it.
They were all friends and this and that and da-da-da.
Yes.
But also there's a slasher, right? So, and plus they set up all the tropes while still showing love to the genre, and it is, really good stuff.
That's what I agree. Really genius, so well written script. Wes Craven, I think one of his masterpieces, really crafted something that was fun, and that's what I think. There's kind of two sides, right? There's a slasher movie that's fun, and there's a slasher movie there's a horror movie that's quite frightening. I think that ones that on the frightening side, like The Conjuring, Conjuring 1 and 2 were horror movies I really loved. Also, Saw, the original, was a horror movie I really loved. I think I loved it so much because it had such a complex game to it. It gamified the horror movie, right? And it's like you took the movie Seven and a slasher movie and put them together, right? And it was something so cool to see these puzzles involved in it, and it was a very interesting slasher, so to speak. In this case, where we have Jigsaw, where he's a guy who's dying of cancer. And he's wanting to teach people a lesson. And that one has always stood with me. A recent one that I did like was The Invisible Man that I saw right before the shutdown. I thought it was
the new Invisible
Man. The new Invisible Man, yes.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
And speaking of, I guess maybe I'm just addicted to the guys who created Saw. It's James. Sorry, it's not James Wan. It's the writer from Saw wrote and directed this film, and it's really a special horror film that once again surprises you in so many unique ways, and takes, in her case, it essentially takes the story of an abused wife, right? And it transforms it, and it gives it a supernatural, though they define that in a different way in this tale, angle to it. But it's her essentially solving her problem with being an abused wife in this horror setting. I think that's why it resonates so well and was such a success, right? Is because it has a truth in it that's covered in this cool supernatural. So those are what I would recommend.
Well, yeah, most really, even quote-unquote throwaway slasher movies, they've got some sort of core to it. I mean, for a movie to resonate and stick with people, it's rarely just the gore or the jump scares. They usually have some sort of deeper resonance, even if you don't realize what it is till 10 years later. Because sometimes when a movie comes out, you don't understand what it's tapping into. But then 10 years later, you can go, like, first time I saw Cloverfield, I didn't catch the 9/11, but I watched it 10 years later, and I was like, that was totally about 9/11. Right. There's even scenes in Cloverfield that are the dusty streets of people walking through, so same like Godzilla was, the Japanese processing having an atomic bomb dropped on them, for goodness sakes. So,
right?
Yeah.
Right? Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, so horror is a very important genre.
And I think horror, think about like horror and fantasy, I think have a lot in common, right? Because what's fun about them is because you add a supernatural or a magical element to them, you remove a lot of the trappings of real life, right? You remove elections and current social issues so that you can deal with themes that are more universal, right? Because you're like, hey, we're now in Lord of the Rings, but we're going to deal with themes that echo everywhere.
Well, and it is, I'm sure but I'll say it for the benefit of the listeners. It's generally accepted psychologically that horror as a genre booms when times are uncertain or people are unhappy or whatever. Is usually when you have a boom in the horror genre. So. In the past few years, there's, definitely been a boom in the horror genre. So I have a question for you on slashers. There's no wrong answer here. There are people in two different camps. And I will tell you what camp I'm in after you tell me what camp you're in.
Okay. It's like that.
All right. This is not about whether Rob Zombie's Halloween is better than John. This has nothing to do with that.
Sure.
Okay. Is Michael Myers scarier to you when he's evil for no reason whatsoever? He's just this boy in a suburban setting that turned into a walking evil in human form. Or is he scarier when you know why he became what he became?
I think in some ways he's more frightening when I don't know why.
Right, because then the kid next door could do that, right?
Then the kid next door can do that. But I think there's a balancing act to that, right? I think it was so great about The Dark Knight with Christopher Nolan making the Joker is objective. Like, we remember when Christian Bale was saying, hey, we just need to find out what he wants and then we can control him. And it's like, no, this guy doesn't want anything.
He wants nothing.
He wants nothing.
Yeah.
And so there's something about a villain like Michael Myers who you can't solve his problem. You can't appease his pain. You can't fix this scenario. It can't be negotiated with. It can't be, maybe if I'm really nice to him, there's actually no way out.
No, you cannot bargain or get on his good side.
That's right. There is no adjusting that. And he's relentless. And there's something very, very terrifying about that. And I think it's what makes an effective horror movie is when, one, they can create that sensation that you can't be bargained with, but also there's maybe some understanding in the sense of Jigsaw, right, where you can understand him more clearly than maybe Michael Myers, but you can't resolve him, right? You can't resolve his issue. or in Seven, such a great film, right? That the killer, you get him, but he can't be resolved.
Right. Yeah, he's just a mad genius.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. He's like Lex Luthor if Lex Luthor would chop your head off.
That's right.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always like 5 steps ahead.
Right. See, whereas Lex Luthor isn't just frightening because Lex Luthor is a megalomaniac, but he can be resolved because he has this desire for attention and acceptance and for the world to think you're as cool and as good as Superman.
Well, he will also, like, Lex Luthor won't kill you just to kill you. Right? Like, so Lex Luthor he's not a sociopath, but he's a criminal. Anyway, I've always landed on Michael Myers is more frightening, as you put it. Now, he's interesting and compelling in the Rob Zombie versions, and the remake they did a couple of years back I thought was good. But he's more frightening to me as when he's just evil. He's just a normal kid that had a normal suburban life and then just went bad. And there's no secret society with tattoos like the stuff that came in later sequels. He's just bad, and like you said, he's just like he's evil in the shape of a man.
Yeah.
All right. So a couple other questions for you, and then I'm going to take it over a little bit into your film and television history, and then we'll get back into the Kill Journal. What, are you enjoying the newer horror like, Hereditary and Midsommar and It Follows? Are you enjoying the new? I like it, but it's
I loved Hereditary, and I really liked It Follows. Midsommar, I don't think I liked as much as the other two. I liked It Follows quite a bit.
It Follows was strong. That movie stuck with me for a few days.
Yeah, that's
this inexorable thing, just following you.
Yeah.
Like and like part of me was horrified, but part of me was like getting into all these engineering, like how would I stop it if it was coming after me?
That's exactly right. You start to begin to think, how would you run away? And I think that was I was a really effective film and really an effective filmmaker. I loved It Follows. I think I liked so much about Hereditary is that it was exploring much bigger themes. I think maybe more complex themes than It Follows, for example. But it had all this kind of layered history with this sort of cultish tie-ins, which I really liked. And it was just the super frightening where it had the moment with the mother and the son. It had kind of like violated these relationships that are usually fairly sacred, right? And so it really you couldn't get it out of your head. I liked, what was, once again, with It Follows, back to what we talked about, it weaponized STDs, in a crazy way, right?
Yeah, oh, big time, yeah. And, it's so weird because, that's such a fundamental thing of that age group, right? That the age of the people that are getting chased by it, like, becoming sexual is like this amazing thing, but it's also scary. You hear all this stuff like, if you do this, you'll die, and da-da-da, and so It Follows was amazing because having sex is what put you in danger, but having sex would also take you out of danger to a certain extent. So it was very, very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. A very cool choice. And I think that I like at what the questions that brought up in that movie, and the way in the end of the guy at the end going past the prostitutes at the end, and it's how is that?
Yeah. I totally took away that they had decided to spread things as much as possible to protect themselves was what I took away, but it was left kind of vague. So
yeah, it's up to you to take it how you want it.
Yeah, no, I thought it was an amazing movie, and I loved. They purposefully did the settings or the sets and the technology to make it timeless.
Yeah.
I went and read up on it after I watched it. And it seems modern, but they're watching an old black and white TV. And then there was this really cool thing where, if you remember, the one girl's Kindle reading device looked like a little seashell. I don't know if you remember that or not. And I went and looked at it. I'm like, that looks cool. Where do I get that? And they made it specifically for the movie. Because, again, they wanted it to have its own dreamlike, so you could never quite nail down what time period it was in. But this is how deep I went with it. Follows. I looked up what the girl was reading, and it was The Idiot by Dostoevsky. And The Idiot by Dostoevsky is about a very, very innocent person who is so innocent, people think they're kind of an idiot, but they end up like affecting everything around them for the better because they're just so innocent and sweet. And the girl who was reading The Idiot by Dostoevsky was the girl that was just always sweet, and she got shot and never complained and was always happy. And so I don't know if they were kind of tying that together or not, but yeah, It Follows kind of stuck with me a little bit. I'm going to do a callback to something you said, then we'll move on. You mentioned The Conjuring, which those movies are very good. If people want to get scared, they should read The Demonologist by Ed Warren, which is the supposed true events that those movies are based on. So it's called The Demonologist, and it talks about him and his wife going and investigating all of these things. And it's, they present it as real. And they say the reason that they do this book and that they did all these lectures was because they felt people were playing with the occult and causing problems.
Right.
So they were trying to educate people. So, but they dedicated their lives to just going in, and they didn't ask for money or anything. They would just go in and try to help people. So, and that little museum or whatever you call it in their house, where they keep all the objects from their, like Annabelle and everything else, that's real. They really had that in their house. I mean, they really had that museum collection, and they had a priest come in and like bless it once a month and stuff like that. So,
wow, that sounds terrifying, because that whole world is a frightening thing.
Yeah, and I mean, people, you can read the book and make your own decisions. But what I'm saying is, Ed and Lorraine Warren are like, this was real. Now they're gone now, but at the time they were like, this stuff is real. So when you're watching The Conjuring, it's Hollywood versions of it. But They're saying that the basic stories were real, which, yikes.
Yes, yikes.
Right? Yikes. So, all right. So, Adam, what I want to do now, if you're okay
let's talk about it, whatever you want.
When you reached out to me, you were like, hey, I've written, this previous graphic novel, and then you were involved with a TV show, Escape the Night.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that other graphic novel you did, and tell us a little bit about your Hollywood or TV work, including I see you were involved with Snakes on a Plane. So so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my previous graphic novel was called The Eighth, and it was about a teenage math genius who unlocks this hidden piece of ancient Sumerian armor, and it takes him and his two friends on this journey across the globe to gather the other pieces. And what he realizes is that he's also the Doombringer, the end of the world.
Yikes. And
he started his story with this math equation where he could take subatomic particles and with a small electric charge take them from simple states to complex states. And he's somebody whose brother had committed suicide due to bullying, and his mother has an alcohol problem. And he lives in a world where it's out of control. Same thing with his friend Emma. She's a foster kid, and then his friend Atticus has a nice religious family and who's put together. So I think what it comes to is that he wants to try and make the world better, except that you can't make the world better, and that comes with a harrowing cost. And he pays that price, and then, with the loss of loved ones and innocent people, as he's finding the other pieces of the armor and finding the other pieces of himself. And then his two friends, Emma and Atticus, are also going on their own journey with him, whereas Atticus is the one that maybe is seeking to do the right thing, and Emma just wants revenge. And our character, David, who's our math genius, finds himself in the middle. And what I loved about it was that the way his real superpower was his ability to run these ultra complex equations in his mind, equations that can't be solved by anyone on Earth. And his essentially the armor, the Sumerian armor, the way it works is he uses math equations to command it. And so if he wants it to do something, he needs to formulate a new equation. And so that's the 8th, and it was a big success on Indiegogo, or I should say big in our expectations for it.
Sure.
We ended up raising about $36,000 and getting well over 600 backers. And it's as cool as a 212-page graphic novel with a hardcover and a slipcase, and it's a beautiful thing. And you can even add it on if you're going to back the Kill Journal, our current one. You can even add the 8th onto your order there. So that was
now, what genre would you classify the 8th as? Is it dark fantasy?
Yeah, it's a
sci-fi.
Yeah, I would say that it's a dark suburban sci-fi tale because the armor is ancient but science fiction in nature. So it's a suburban tale, right? It's kids in small town. It's not a sci-fi show in the future, and it deals with some pretty dark issues in it for sure. It's a heavy book. It's kind of like most of my tales where there's something at the core of it, which is a boy who's been bullied and his brother's committed suicide, stuck in this ancient Sumerian armor, right? And so it's a boy dealing with the fact he can't control the world, and it seems out of his control. And so I love the tale, and we deliver the issues monthly digitally, and we're on the last issue. There's 8, and we're almost done with it. So that's the 8th. And for television, I've been working in television for 17 years, and what I am now is I am a television showrunner. And on Escape the Night, I was the showrunner and also the writer and director of all the episodes. And so
on Escape the Night.
Yes.
Okay.
And before that, I directed this celebrity board gaming show called Will Wheaton's TableTop.
Yeah, of course. A lot of my listeners will know TableTop. I know TableTop.
Then I did Spell Singers, Sagas of Sundry, Forest Grey, Titan's Grave, a whole slew of gaming shows. I also wrote the movie called Game Therapy. It was a theatrical picture. I wrote another movie called A Game of Assassins. And I produced a comedy called How to Make Love to a Woman. And then I produced another sci-fi thriller called The Phoenix Incident. Yeah. And so
I'm sure that's the Phoenix Incidents, the Phoenix Lights from
1997.
Roughly 20 years ago. That has inspired so many found footage movies.
It has.
Like half the found footage movies out there are the Phoenix Lights. I'm joking, but there's a lot of them.
No, you're not mistaken. Yeah. You're not mistaken.
Yeah. Did you see that news article that Kurt Russell was one of the first people to report them and he didn't even realize it?
Oh, no, I didn't. That's amazing.
Yeah, it just came out a few months ago. Every now and then I'll do a roundup on my show and do a sort of an homage to Art Bell in Coast to Coast AM. So I'll cover news stories that would have been, kind of like what Art Bell would have done if you're familiar with him. And one of them was, there's so much UFO news here lately, but one of them was Kurt Russell. He's a pilot, private pilot.
Yep.
He radioed them in without even realizing what he was radioing in. No. And then years later, he realized that, I was one, and it turns out he was probably one of the first, if not the first pilots to actually, and he had no idea. He just kept going with it. He was like, I see some strange lights tonight, and he kept going. So isn't that weird?
That is crazy. It's awesome.
Yeah. So you've got, like you mentioned, you got the Phoenix Incidents, How to Make Love to a Woman. You've done a lot of stuff here. Of course, you did Titan's Grave, which I'm familiar with. Tabletop. That is one of those shows or pieces of entertainment, I will say, it may not have made it into the mainstream, but it exploded in the subculture.
It absolutely did. It absolutely did. I remember there was a write-up in the Board Game Quarterly magazine that said that the best thing to ever happen to tabletop gaming. And it really revolutionized so many things about it. It also helped create what is our new Kickstarter culture for getting board games. We'd have a game on Kickstarter on tabletop that would improve sales by 1,600% and stay there for the next year. And so
isn't that great?
It brought a new life to it, and it's really, really exciting. I wouldn't say that we were the only ones responsible, but it was part of that. And I felt good to part of the team. It's folks like Critical Role, who I've worked with a great deal, that have brought these tabletop gaming experiences to a whole new level.
I've been a tabletop RPG guy since, I was like 11 or 12 or something, right?
Ditto, yeah.
Yeah, there's no way I would have predicted that in after the year 2000, people would watch spectator role-playing.
I mean,
no
one would ever believe it. I remember, Shane, I had this moment when I was pitching at early on, maybe like 5 years ago. I shouldn't say early on, but 5-6 years ago, I was pitching to a television network, a TV show, and in it there was a character who liked to watch other people play video games, and that was a part of the show. And the network executive looked at me and was like, no one watches people play video games. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I remember just thinking how out of touch they were, not realizing that the most famous YouTuber on earth, all the people do is watch them play video games. And more people watch him play video games than watched this network. Right. And it was hysterical to realize that what is moving oftentimes through the doors of television networks is not what people are doing. The catch-22 of it is what's happened in the modern world with the fact that as a user, I can make a show and export it to YouTube, to TikTok, to Instagram, to these other places, is I can move faster than any TV network. And if I'm dealing with something that's inexpensive to produce, such as people gaming, I can always win. I can always beat them because they can never get on the pulse, because by the time they've greenlit the show, budgeted it, and we get to go make it, it's old. And so the new things already happened. So it's a really interesting time, having done a lot of work for YouTube originals and worked in that space. It's one of the reasons why cable networks are going out of business like you wouldn't believe here in California. They were already on the way there, but they're now getting there much faster due to COVID. And because of their inability to sort of realize how outdated they are. It's like MTV. That's not new. Nothing on MTV is cutting edge because it already happened. If you're following, influencers and social trends, you have already seen it before they could get it on air. So it's a really unique time, and I think what's cool about it is, like you're saying, Critical Role, 200,000 people watch them live. I mean, that's like that's like 2 super stadiums of people watching them play D&D. It's insane.
Yeah, and they, there was, I remember a couple of years ago, like Acquisitions Incorporated, they did a simulcast in theaters, and people went to the theaters to watch. It was like a Fathom Events kind of thing. And, it's now I'll be honest, watching people play RPGs is not very compelling for me, but I'm not against it and I'm not down on it because a lot of people love it and it's helping the hobby. Right.
That's right.
So, I'll watch the occasional little bit of Critical Role, or I'll watch a little bit of Acquisitions Incorporated, but it's not my thing.
Yeah.
But I'm not down on it. Like a lot of old guard RPG people are like, it's like, well, what do you care if they enjoy it? Let them, who cares?
Yeah.
It's good for the hobby.
I think what they're not seeing is that why it works is because it creates the chat on the side, right? So what happens is you get
the people are
you become a fan.
Chatting.
Exactly. Right. You become a fan like a sports fan is. Like for me, watching football is terrifyingly boring.
Me too.
It's not my sport.
Thank you. Me too, man.
It's terrifyingly boring. Yeah. It's like, wait a minute. So 60,000 people sit on their butts and watch other people play. How could anybody ever do this? Yet we've been doing it for centuries, and it's just so funny that now it's like, yo, bro, it's not just sporting events. It's an RPG event is the same thing. It's the sport for the geek world. And it gives them an opportunity to talk about it, to be fans, to chat about it. Oh, did you catch what happened on the stream? And all these things.
Yeah, it's a community around it.
Exactly. Right. It's like, why would they watch RPGs? Well, why would they watch football? They aren't playing.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. It's mystifying to me, but people love it. I mean, people love Critical Role with a deep and abiding love.
It's deep. That's deep.
Yeah. And really, the only thing that I'll tell gamers and stuff is like, look, Critical Role's great, and if you enjoy it, more power to you. But you have to remember those are like voice actors and professional entertainers,
yeah.
right? And so don't because this happens. Some people secretly, well, I want to go play a game, so they go down to the game store and play a game, and you're not going to get probably
Matt Mercer. It's probably not.
Yeah, Matt Mercer. Right.
Yeah.
So and Matt Mercer has even said, look, this is an entertainment product. Like the framework is D&D, but this is an entertainment product. So that's, and I've heard other people say, oh, it's caused problems. I've had more problems. I run D&D every week. Not at the game store anymore because of COVID right now, but I've had more people coming in, more problems with people coming in and playing like single player, computer role-playing games and expecting that experience. And I'm like, no, this is a group thing.
Yeah.
We're not all here to support your story. So I've had more problem with that than I have any, critical role in inspired stuff. All right. Well, now's as good time as any to do some quick show notes. Speaking of show notes, you can always find show notes and links from each episode up at shaneplays.com. That's ShanePlays.com. Speaking of the podcast, there's multiple ways to find it. You can always listen to it on the blog at shaneplays.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Podbean, YouTube, and more. And we are now also on Amazon Music. And last but never least, Shane Plays is carried on Krypton Radio. Krypton Radio is sci-fi for your Wi-Fi, KryptonRadio.com. Don't forget to follow. I have 2 Twitters for the show. One of them is more of a personal Twitter that's much more active. And the other one is a Twitter that just has the basic meat and potatoes announcements and occasional news links and that sort of thing. The more active one is just Shane Plays, ShanePlays. If you just want the meat and potatoes, go to Shane Plays PR. That's ShanePlays PR. And another good reason to follow either or both of those accounts is I very often post codes, links, promotional affiliate links, whatever, for games, Humble Bundle. You can get all kinds of cool stuff at a discount. Ebooks, comic books, again, video game software, whatever. So, and I post that stuff pretty often. So I do recommend following one or both of those accounts. And we do have a Patreon. Go to Shane Plays. Not Shane Plays. Go to patreon.com/Shane. Shane Plays does not own Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Shane Plays, and you can support the show for as little as $1 an episode. And last, I always want to give a shout out to my advertising partner, Cursova Magazine, CIRSOVA Magazine. Cursova Magazine. It's basically adventure fiction, pulp fiction in the literary tradition of Conan and H.P. Lovecraft and Elric and all that cool stuff. They do an amazing job over there. The cover art's always amazing. The stories are always varied and interesting from multiple genres. You like Edgar Rice Burroughs, that kind of thing. Check them out. Cursova Magazine. And now, back to the show with Adam Lawson. Thanks for listening. So, Adam, what did you start out to be? Because you're in TV, movies, you're doing, role-playing games, graphic novels. I mean, what did you set out to be in life and ended up, what has happened here?
Well, I think, my company is called the Failed Superheroes Club because I set out to be a superhero and that failed, early on in my teenage years. So then, like most people in film and TV, you settled on being a TV director and writer because it was the only thing you could kind of do that would emulate being a superhero, or at least you thought. Well,
so when you say you wanted to be a superhero, what do you mean? Like you literally wanted to run around in the alleys and
I was thinking that Wolverine being the next Wolverine was my career choice. At the ripe old age of 12. And then settled on being a television writer and director. So, I set out, to tell stories through film. Is where I set out as, and that evolved into, once I got in the industry, better understanding the roles and positions, a TV showrunner. But I have, in my time in television, I spent so much time with my passion for board gaming and comics as being a fuel to my television work. And I've had such a love of it, and I've been wanting to make comics and wanting to make games all my life. And so COVID was the window for me to start making them. So I've been.
I have to interrupt you there. I'm sorry. This hits on something that I've been telling people. COVID sucks. Okay, let's not
be confused.
COVID sucks.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, COVID sucks. I hate COVID. I'm not glad about COVID. But there are a lot of people getting to work on stuff that they've been wanting to work on either for a long time or their whole lives. And there's going to be some cool stuff coming out of that. Because when you force a lot of people to stop and slow down and find ways to occupy themselves, because I've been doing it too. I've been working on stuff that I've wanted to get to. I've been working on all kinds of stuff I've been wanting to get to. So there's going to be some cool stuff come out of the inconvenience and the things that COVID has caused. Okay, I'm done with my mini rant. Keep going.
Yes, no, that's it. So I've been working on this game and these comics for several years when I was working in television. Well, I still work in television, writing a show right now. But
are you? Can you? Which show is that?
I can't actually say it now. It's a new.
Okay.
I can say it will be an interactive series for Netflix. So it's kind of like You vs. Wild, where as people are watching the show, they can make choices that change the story.
All right. Did you? I have to. Man, I'm really pinging on so much stuff you're saying. This is a fun conversation. Did you get the new Death in the Family DVD that just came out from DC Animation?
No.
It's a choose your own adventure on the Death in the Family storyline.
No.
Did Jason Todd survive? Did he not survive? Who saved him? Does he want to take vengeance? Does he want to follow the path of good? It's really interesting stuff.
Wow. So something like...
Yeah, and it's got 7 different endings. Yeah, go ahead.
No, so something to that effect. But I had been working on these comic books and board games, in spare time, just dumping all my own money into it. My business partner, and we've been working on these things with the hope that someday we could launch them, and we were getting really pumped about it. And it just, just due to production life, you get caught in a show, and I had 4 seasons of Escape the Night, and you're just deep in it, and you just can't get the time. And then everything shut down, and it was a couple weeks into it, and I said, this is going to last longer. Is when my business partner, I said, let's start doing this. Let's do this crowdfunding thing, and let's see if it'll work. I know it's this crazy time. And the 8th was a success. Now the Kill Journal's out. Now Asunder is launching. And, having a strong, publishing company is now becoming into our hands. And it's really exciting. And I think the part of the charm is that I'm able to bring, some of my folks from the world of TV into it and to get some support there. But also, too, I'm not making comics because I want them to be a film or Asunder because it needs to be a movie, but because I love those mediums.
You love the medium for its own right. Yeah, me too. Yeah. I'm a huge comic book nerd from way back, and I love the medium. I love the superhero genre. I'm unabashedly a superhero genre nerd, but I like pretty much anything in comic book form or graphic novel form. Amazing stories can be told. I was just thinking recently about Mouse. Did you ever read Mouse? Where it tells the story of the Jews going into the concentration camps, and it's an amazing graphic novel. It won several awards, but it presents the Jewish people as mice. Hence the German name Maus, M-A-U-S. And then the Germans of the time, the Nazis, are portrayed as cats. And it's really powerful. And I just watched, have you seen American Splendor?
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a powerful, this guy who happened to know R. Crumb decides to do comics about just everyday life, about nothing, and the complexity of just normal life. And it was there's so much you can do with comics and cartooning, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. I love wham pow superheroes, but it doesn't just have to be that by any means.
Yeah, no.
So,
no, not
yeah. No. So speaking of, let's go ahead, and I want to take some time and talk about the Kill Journal. That's the main reason we're having you on today is to make sure people know about that. Now, you have, as of today, which is October 21st, you have 15 days left. You've exceeded your goal, which is good, so it's going to happen, but we want to get more people in on this.
Right. We want to get the stretch goals. We want those stretch goals out so that we can get the mini stories.
Yeah, we want to do that. And there's a wonderful perk here that has a hardbound Kill Journal and a Revenant mask. That looks really cool. So
Yes.
I like the Revenant mask.
So I wanted to, I think I did this with the 8th as well. I wanted to make the graphic novel, because as you're crowdfunding something, it's like, I didn't want it to just be what you could get at your LCS, right? I wanted it to be something special and collectible. Like, I think about like the books that I've saved over the years, the hardcovers or some sort of special edition. And so for the Kill Journal, it's a leather-bound edition, well, faux leather bound edition. It's an 88-page graphic novel. It's got all covers in there as if it was, like a trade. And we're trying to add another 24 pages to it to make it 112 pages of story. And then with covers, about 128. And it's this, so in and of itself, it's this highly detailed and designed cover that is actually the Kill Journal that the one of the main characters, St. George, keeps inside the story. So he is this priest who a revenant came through and butchered his congregation, and he's turned his church into the training grounds to go and hunt these revenants. And he has these support group meetings, and he invites people who've survived and those who are crazy enough and willing enough, or who he can convince that revenge is the answer. He recruits. And he records all of their revenants that they meet and details in this Kill Journal, which looks like an old Catholic Bible. And so this book that when you get the Kill Journal, it looks just like the one inside the comic is what it was designed on. And so you are reading the book, and the guy in your story is writing the book you're reading, if you will.
Okay, so there's a couple of things that I thought of when I was looking through the Kill Journal. It's about people who are trying to take revenge on, and the Revenants are not the same thing as slasher bad guys, but it's basically if Jason came through and killed a bunch of people that were important to you, and you've decided to go after Jason, but in this case, it wouldn't be Michael Meyers, because Michael Meyers is a human. He's he's not a spiritual energy or entity or anything like that. But I guess in later movies, Jason is basically kind of a spiritual thing, and Freddy and all of that. One thing that occurred to me to wonder, and there's a lot of this type of stuff happening in these generations, because the people who saw this growing up have had time to percolate on it and think about it. It's kind of like what led to Scream. Are you doing any deconstructionism like Cabin in the Woods or The Final Girls or anything like that? Are you trying to deconstruct the genre, or are you just trying to have fun?
No, so I'm not.
I mean, you could do both. Yeah,
right? No, I'm not trying to necessarily deconstruct the genre. I'm trying to treat the genre as if it's serious and that there is a real answer. Right. So that there's a cure, or not the cure, but there is some greater force behind what makes a Michael Myers, what makes a Jason Voorhees, and then it can somehow be quenched. So there's the two storylines, the main plot hunting these revenants, and there's a subplot figuring out what is the force behind them all, if there is.
Right.
And so I'm less trying to deconstruct it like Cabin in the Woods, where it's like, it turns out it's all part of this machine, and these guys are in a factory, and they do this whole thing.
Which was a wonderful movie,
which is a great movie. I love that film.
Yeah.
But instead, what it's saying is, let's actually push it farther the other direction. We're going to take these revenants and make them more serious, right? Like, how do they become... Because we're essentially, our tale is about trauma survivors at its core, right? And how do they cope after you've experienced this immense amount of trauma and violence? And because they have both demons on the inside that they're facing, all the problems and guilt and complex issues that come from the trauma, as well as the demons they're hunting on the outside. So it's less Cabin in the Woods and much more we're taking it seriously.
So there's no, like Cabin in the Woods, and have you seen The Final Girls? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Okay. Some of these movies, they tell a good story, but at the same time, they're totally breaking the fourth wall and winking at the audience the whole time.
Yeah. And that's not what we're doing.
Okay.
There is no winking at the camera, winking to the camera.
Okay. So do you get into one thing that I thought of? It's like these revenants come out of trauma and revenge, like the revenants have revenge on their mind. By deciding to seek revenge on them are the protagonists, figuratively becoming, not like spiritually revenants, but are they getting into a danger zone by kind of wanting to live a life of revenge as well?
Certainly some of them are. And that's part of the tale too, right? It's like how, does the cop become the criminal, right? In some instances.
Right.
And so what I'm wondering is, so what we're trying to say is that this is a mighty fine line that they're walking, right? There's one thing to go and kill a revenant. There's another thing to kill a human. And if along the way you end up killing a human, what have you become, right? And also, too, as you're trying to trap these revenants, there's going to be casualties, right? And are you at fault? Did you knew, and maybe you could have warned people that you were using as bait, etc. And so it brings up a lot of tough questions, right? And I think that's what was more exciting to me than like deconstructing it, because it's been really deconstructed well.
Yeah, it really has.
It's been deconstructed
I enjoy
well.
a good deconstruction,
and I love that. And it's been deconstructed really well. But so I thought what would be more interesting is if we push the other way, where the heroes in our tale were once victims, and now they're after these revenants, and they're on the verge of maybe becoming some revenants themselves, right? And so it's anyways, that's where I wanted to take this to separate.
It sounds really good. So is there? I mean, even though we're talking in terms of revenants, I'm guessing like the larger story arc sounds really good. But it sounds like if you have fans of classic 80s slasher movies, will there be moments in there like that?
For sure. They're going to love it.
Okay.
Because it's this dramatic tale set in this world of slasher movies, but it is also a slasher movie in and of itself. And, it's essentially what it is it's like at the end of Halloween, when everyone's dead and you're covered in mud and blood and the houses have been burned down, and you're thinking, now what do I do? And at that point, the credits roll, and the cops show up, and the credits roll. This story picks up after those credits have rolled, and continues the journey. So, but in the business of hunting revenants, it's going to get frightening. It's going to get violent. Your enemy is beyond your capability.
Yeah, I mean that's what anytime. And I'm not speaking to what's in your book. I'm just saying my personal preferences in a slasher movie. What makes a slasher villain good? Anytime somebody stands and tries to fight them like they're you can't. I mean, that's part of their. If you try to stand and go toe to toe with one of these guys, like there was that Halloween movie where it was Halloween Resurrection, where he walked in at the end and went trick or treat, whatever, and kicked Michael Meyers down. It's like I feel like that's a misinterpretation of the character. Like you should never be able to own the baddie like that.
Right. And now some of our characters in the story, particularly this one guy, Finch, who grew up in a dogfighting arena on the Mexican border. A dog didn't show one day, and his dad threw him in the ring, and he killed the pit bull, and then he grew up training like a dog. He can go toe to toe in the sense that he's aggressive enough to wade right in. It doesn't mean that he wins. He doesn't just he doesn't just take him out. But imagine this: instead of running from Jason, you jump on him and you're gouging at his eyes and biting at his ear. He's going to throw you off him, but you didn't just sit down. That's kind of...
No, I got you. Yeah, no, I'm down with that. But, these people that are like... The only time I liked it in a horror movie was Jason X, when they upgraded the android to go after Jason. I enjoyed that scene, because they still brought Jason back. But normally, if you're going to go toe-to-toe with the slasher, it demystifies what the slasher is, right? Like, if you could just sit there and box them.
That's right. It's dumb, right? And that's what these characters are. And also, too, even if they manage to take one down physically for a moment, it's just coming back.
And you're doing it. Yeah, you're doing it right. That's the thing.
It's just coming back.
They're inevitable. They're inexorable.
Yeah.
Right. They defy the laws of So
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, and so these books are written by you, and the art is, or what? What's the?
So the Kill Journal is written by myself, and the artist is Jason Krager, who worked on The Darkness and Evangeline back in the Top Cow days, and
nice.
He's an amazing artist who just delivers incredible pages. My colorist is a guy named Steve Cannon, who worked on a book called Jack Irons. And then there is 4 mini.
I know Jack Irons, the Steel Cowboy.
Yeah.
No, and thank you for bringing up the colorist, because the colorist is just as important of a storyteller as everybody else in comic books.
Is a huge storyteller.
Right.
And in fact, then we have 4 mini stories that we're trying to unlock with our stretch goals. And these mini stories are 6-page tales that tell you the night of horror that happened to each one of our heroes. So instead of the book being 88 pages of origin story, instead it can be a story. And then you can, after you've taken the journey, you can read about the night that they were attacked for each one of our heroes.
Right.
And those are all written by 4 different writers, 4 different artists, and 4 different colorists. And so it's cool that you can see the world through other people's eyes and not just mine.
Right.
Though I mean, in the sense that I edited them and gave them a direction to write on. They're just not a random tale. They fit in our universe. But
all right, folks. So you can go to I'll have the link at shaneplays.com. I always post the podcast there. Or you can go to Indiegogo and search for the Kill Journal. Or if you search for the Kill Journal anyway, you'll end up there, I would imagine. But it's Indiegogo.com. It's the Kill Journal. You can get cool stuff like a mask that looks very cool, a faux leather hardbound copy. You can get monthly digital issues. You can get T-shirt. You can get some original art on comic board. Some really neat stuff going on here. And by the time this goes out, there should be roughly 2 weeks left to get in on it. So I would definitely recommend it. Unfortunately, our time is up, Adam, but I've enjoyed having you on so much. Dude. And it looks like we'll talk again soon on your Asunder RPGs. So
count me in.
Yeah. So I got to finish on this. Well, I have to finish on 2 things, but first I have to ask you, as a geek, okay, pre-zombie Jason, not zombie Jason. Do you know what I'm about to ask? I don't know.
You should ask.
Pre-zombie Jason versus John Carpenter's Michael Myers from like Halloween 1 and 2. Pre-zombie Jason, Michael Myers, they both have a machete.
Right.
Who's getting up and walking away?
I mean, I think the original is walking away. Pre-zombie, and here's why he's walking away.
All right.
The original guy is walking away because he's not zombified. His darkness and his evil is so pure and so raw, it doesn't need to be zombified, right? That's all fake stuff added on top. That's all sensationalized. This is just a guy in a mask with a kitchen knife, right? And
so we're talking Jason here, right?
No.
Or are we talking
Michael Myers?
So Michael Myers is taking Jason?
Yes.
Yes! This is the correct ding, 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 ding.
Yes. When I mean mask, I mean the mask that he wore in the original Carpenter, the Shatner modifier.
The shape takes Jason. This is the correct answer. Yes, you win. Yes.
Because it's all that like aggro zombie stuff that's just like, bro, you're just talking loud. Whereas Myers is the pure evil.
Michael Myers to me is my favorite of what people would call the trifecta of Freddy, Jason. I love Michael Myers, and it's because of that. He just like there's no reasoning or whatever. Before Jason died, and became a zombie, you could mess with his head. You could pretend to be his mom, or you know what I'm saying? There was still some humanity there. Where Michael Myers is just like, I'm a human-shaped evil, and I will kill you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so
Michael Myers, in my mind, is if evil could be distilled down into a form,
right,
and it walked on 2 legs like a man, it would be Michael Myers.
Exactly. Now, I gotta say, zombie Jason would take Michael Myers, because Michael Myers has the limitations of human body.
Fair enough.
Okay, I'm gonna go with that. All right. So the other thing I have to do, Adam, and I apologize in advance. I always do the bad joke of the week on Shane Plays. So I forgot to send you the waiver. So I hope that you will not lawyer up on me for any mental damages here. But the bad joke of the week this week is, what is a vampire's favorite fruit?
Tomatoes.
A nectarine.
Oof. I'm going to need a lawyer.
All right, man. Thanks for being on.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, all the best of luck with the Kill Journal. You've already funded, but we want to keep you funded and get those stretch
Let's get to
goals
those. Thank you.
Stories. Yeah, let's do that. Folks, it's the Kill Journal. Watch a group of survivors band together and see if they can do something about these revenants running around, which are basically, think of them as slashers from the 80s, but they're more than that. So I'm really looking forward to this. This looks really good. Thanks again for coming on, and we'll have you on again soon for Asunder.
Thank you.
Folks, we'll catch you next time on Shane Plays.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.